Should I just tell? 5:30, they need to be saved.
Waiting on that sign to be
Yeah.
done.
I have a Andrews Park dedication at the lake, and I'm like, oh gosh, there's a committee that day, so I don't really know how that's going. Yeah,
Okay, we'll go and get started today. Everybody, thank you for joining us for the Thursday, March 2nd meeting of the Business and Community Affairs Committee for the City of Norman. Today we have two items on our agenda, the first being a presentation from Engage Learning, and I believe that the director for Engage will be joining us via Zoom. Not sure how we kick that off over there.
someone needs to start the meeting.
We did.
I think I can hit start.
It's not started.
There we go. I thought you meant, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the YouTube meeting.
No. I meant the Zoom meeting.
It's been one of those days.
Watch.
Yeah.
Well, while he's getting that set up,
You have to join audio.
I'll go ahead and give a little intro to why this item's on the agenda. I have been following Engage Learning for several years now, and they are a Norman-based nonprofit who does a lot of great work with elementary school kids and just kids in general. And so I wanted them to present on what all Engage does and, you know, why they're a great fit for Norman and why we want to keep them in Norman. So Bart Keaton, that is the executive director for Engage Learning. I just gave them a nice little intro about why we're hearing this agenda item tonight. So I'm just going to open up to you, Bart, and just kind of give a quick, brief overview on what Engage is and, you know, kind of what you guys are trying to do here in Norman and statewide.
Sure. No, thanks a lot, Matt. And so we just finished a project here we're in Hobbs, New Mexico. We've been running a 2-month design competition and working with a 9th grade academy here. 6 different teams that are at CTEC, which is a brand new career technical space right next to the high school. So I'm sorry I can't be with you in person. But to give some context, Engage is 7 years old. It was founded in Norman, began with a project with Alcott middle school teachers and students. They were challenged to design and build a solar powered recharging station that is now at Norman High School. It went in there as soon as those 7th graders completed it back in 2016, and it's still functional and it's still gorgeous. And so those really large creative design build projects are still part of our DNA. We've expanded to work with many, many more students, but those kind of projects we really adore. Engage is a nonprofit. We have roughly 50 staff, 18 now are full-time. Most are either with degrees in computer science, architecture, engineering, GIS. Some are former educators who see the appeal of working with lots of students across the state. And then we have about 35 to 40 part-time staff, and a lot of them are OU students. A lot are OSU students, and we even have a whole 3D printing crew at Norman High School. So we have a program that reaches rural students throughout Oklahoma, and part of that 15-hour live STEM program is they learn how to design and then 3D print. And so then we print their designs at a distance and ship them back to them, and there are a lot of Norman High School students who are doing that work. What we'd love to do in Norman is a lot of what we've been able to do in Oklahoma City. OKCPS is our largest partner. We've been training their STEM elementary teachers, all 33, as well as their middle school teachers at 15 different sites for a number of years. We've partnered with them on their 5-week summer school. As we love working with teachers, Engage is very pro-public school. We want to be in the public school, support the teachers, support the kids, get to know the families. We have a lot of different initiatives to try and do those very things. So for example, last summer with OKCPS, at 10 different summer school sites, we had one of our staff partnering with one of their staff for the STEM component of summer school. And we did this 5 days a week for 25 days in addition to the other projects we were working on. The output of that, the outcome was 39% retention in 2021 for almost 3,000 OKCPS kids, 95% retention over those 25 days last summer. And most of the feedback we received was, hey, I didn't want to miss because I didn't want to miss finishing our projects that we were doing in the STEM component and the maker component. So there's always been, whenever we're involved with the school, our team is, a really high shift in attendance. Students start to say things like, I don't want to go to my basketball games, I'd rather work on this STEM project. Do we really have to have a snow day because we're only 2 days away from completing this thing we're doing with Engage? And I recognize that's anecdotal, but it is unusual, and I thought it'd be worth reporting. So we have a makerspace in Oklahoma City right next to Mark Twain Elementary. It's 2,700 square feet. It's completely dedicated to K-12, and we've had that for 3 or 4 years. If there's any opportunity where we could try to recreate that, and even on a larger scale, as that space is already not big enough for all the activities we have going on there, in Norman, we'd love to do that. We have an opportunity to have 10 weeks worth of summer programming, really rigorous STEM and maker education for Norman kids this summer, and I don't know if there's a chance that a space that might be owned by the city could be available for that. But there's homeschool groups, there's a large homeschool community that we'd love to serve during the day. And then after school is something that I think Norman parents, at least that I hear from, are really, really hungry for something very challenging, but also career readiness based for their kids. So that was a lot of words. I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk, and I'd just love to hear any questions that you might have about either organization or possibly our plans.
No, I really appreciate that, Bart. Like I said, I've been following Engage for a number of years now, and I'm just, as an architect, I'm blown away about the design build, design training that you guys are able to do with elementary school kids. I mean, I've seen you guys do work with third graders where you designed a playground project, and then those same kids actually went out and built it and then used it as students. So it's just, just the full circle design build aspect of it with kids that age, getting them exposed to STEM. It's really powerful for me, and that's why I was so interested in hearing you guys today, because you're Norman based. I don't want to keep it that way. So this really meeting is just to kind of figure out, put ideas on the table, how we make that happen and where we could potentially make that happen. So I'm happy to open up for questions from the other council members that are here if you have any, or we can just kind of keep having a discussion. Councilmember Graham.
With the employees, what is their pay and do they get benefits?
Yes, so we try to pay at least as well, if not better, than public schools. So we start employees at 15 an hour. So our high school staff makes 15 an hour. Our college staff makes 15 or 20. A lot of our full-time staff makes 16 above. They do have a fantastic healthcare program. We're still pretty young, so we don't have a full range of benefits, but one of our goals for this year is to do a 401k with matching. Here's something I really like saying, because I'm not always able to say it. But as of our first dozen employees, going all the way back to our first hires from 2016, 2017, they're all still with us. They moved to Virginia. They work in our distance learning program full time. They moved to Canada. Their lead for our distance learning program lives in Nova Scotia, and we talk every day. So we've somehow been able to create an organization that people want to continue to be a part of.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on something pretty important there. You guys are almost a pipeline between the public school system through the university, and then once kids graduate from the university, retaining them as young professionals in Norman and across the state. So that's the angle that I'm really intrigued by, just how we better facilitate that pipeline. So yeah, what kind of space are you looking for? I mean, do you know square footage wise, or are there certain locations that you guys need to be better than others?
We can probably be pretty flexible on location. Some of it depends what the city might want. The space we have in Oklahoma City is, there's nothing particularly special about the building. It's about 50 years old, cinder block. We will make do with what is available because of the people inside. I mean, I've stressed our staff, and I can't say enough about how fantastic they are. We've got about 10 down here in New Mexico today, and we're getting ready to take off this afternoon. They are what makes this organization, I think, unique and special. So if they're in the building, it doesn't matter what that building is. Now, we also would love this to be an amazing space for kids and for families. So, for example, we've started doing some community STEM nights. The Well has opened up their space to us, so both in October and December, and then later this month on the 30th, we'll have about a dozen different hands-on activities for kids from K all the way through 8th grade from robotics to drones to lots of different things that some of the students have had a chance to work with before, but many have not. In December, we had over 600 folks show up in the couple hours that we were running that space, and it was just incredibly fun. And I think if there's an opportunity for us to potentially host those in our own space, that would be great. If not, the well, it seems very welcoming and would love to have us back. Another thing we'd like to do is, I mentioned after school summer programming is a pretty urgent opportunity for us this summer. OU, of course, is opening their spaces for a very high fee, so that might be something that we can consider. But again, having a space of our own would be pretty amazing. And then finally, there's been a lot of interest in some of the large kits that we can provide for teachers to replicate some of the things that we do around the OKC area. If they're in rural Oklahoma, which half of Oklahoma's teachers and students are, we can provide all the materials. So a number of our staff have a very deep manufacturing background. There's a chance to create some incredible learning tools that we can ship not only to Oklahoma but elsewhere. We just haven't had the space to do this. We've started to acquire the tools, but we're working out of 6 or 7 garages in Norman and a couple in OKC, and that's just not the same. So we're fortunate, I think, to have way more opportunities than we're able to respond to, but having a space of our own would change that dynamic, I think, considerably.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I mean, two things that stuck out to me when you were just talking was one, the outreach to rural schools. Norman has a very significant rural population, so doing that outreach is very important, I think, to the city. But also something that came to mind was, we just passed a school bond a couple weeks ago that is going to fund an aviation academy here. And so I see Engage being able to come alongside that endeavor and really start the training for those kids in elementary school, because that program's based for high school kids. So being able to give them a head start, learning some of that terminology and learning some of the physics behind all of it all, I think is really huge. And now that I mentioned that, would you mind touching on your sports lab program just a little bit? Because I think that's pretty impactful as well.
Yeah, and I'll circle back. So aviation, Scott Beck has been on our board for a few years. Joe Sayano's on our board. He's been part of it from the beginning. But Scott and I would talk about the Aviation Academy. And one thing that we've tried to do as an organization is stay in our lane. We are not set up to be working with the best and brightest juniors and seniors in high school. That's not our job. We weren't founded to do that. But elementary students, middle school students, we can challenge them pretty considerably. So if there is an opportunity or interest with NPS for us to start pulling down some of that learning about physics, about flight to the elementary school level, there is a pretty cool opportunity there for a knowledge pipeline and an engagement pipeline from elementary through middle and then up to the high school years. Sports Lab that Matt mentioned is a project we started developing about 5 years ago. It was actually, and she doesn't know this, but the brainchild of a parent connected with Emmy, whose son was part of our summer engineering program. And she said, hey, my other son, he's so nuts about sports, if it's not sports related, he's not showing up. And a light went off, and we thought, he's not unique, whether he's, boys or girls, very sports focused, I was as a kid too. How do we take that commitment, that level of interest and passion, and then not only expose that young person to all the science that's part of the sports she's already involved in, but then hopefully, if we do our job right, spend some of that enthusiasm to, hey, wait a minute, if I know exactly how the ball rotates when I pitch it and the physics behind that, I can become a better pitcher. If I understand the physics and the science behind the collisions, that it is my mass plus my velocity, well, maybe I can be a little bit better on tackle, playing football or maybe another contact sport. So we started developing essentially a mobile science unit that now we've partnered with Sportive Devon. It's a 5-year program with OU and OSU, where before every single home football game, as well as home basketball games, softball, will be the gymnastics meet at OU tomorrow. We have a lot of kinetic hands-on activities for students to learn about balance, to learn about developing their muscles and what's unique in a hang that we'll be doing tomorrow. For basketball, precision and accuracy with shooting, parabolas with the arc of a shot. You can imagine all the different opportunities here. And these have been incredibly exciting and fun. And then the number of students who will show up to these activities are in the hundreds. We've had a number of camps, both with the OU softball team, as well as the football team last spring. We've done basketball camps with both male and female players. We have some others coming up later this spring. That this has just become its own dynamic program. It's a way of pulling students into STEM, but also engaging with those college athletes, many of whom will say, and of course this sounds super salesy, but I'm self-conscious about that, but many of whom will say, man, if only I had something like this when I was in middle school, I would have thought about the game very, very differently. Or if only I had something like this when I was in elementary school, I might be reconsidering, how I play this game and some of the things I might do after my sports career is over. And we find that incredibly rewarding to have someone that we admire as an athlete, even though they're much younger than an old guy like me, to be impacted by some of this programming with youth. So that's a Norman-based adventure. We have a lot of that's going on in Stillwater, and we have a whole team up there. But the real heart of that is in Norman, and the space in Norman would give us a chance to grow that program and then expand it beyond just the athletic facilities and opportunities that are available to OU.
Well, like I've said several times already, selfishly, I want to do what we can to keep you guys in Norman. And so I've got several buildings, city-owned properties off the top of my head that I think would be a good fit. But, as you know, I'm one of 9 votes, so that's why we're having this discussion today. And I just want to get everybody's feedback. I didn't really have any kind of predetermined outcome with this meeting, but just wanted to get people's feedback and give you guys the opportunity to ask Bart questions. So, Councilmember Holman.
Yeah, so where's the location currently in Norman? Or
We don't have one.
Okay.
So we have a lot of staff who live in Norman. We work out of garages. One of the things that I think has been part of has been a benefit to the work we do is we go to the schools. We work during school time. We work after school time. We've partnered with OU for space a lot. The Innovation Hub has been an incredible partner for us from the beginning at OU. But we do not have a place where we can invite students in the summers that is our own, or for the homeschool community during the day when a lot of kids are in public school during the day.
Okay, so no HQ at all. It's completely mobile.
Yeah, I'd say their HQ is the one they have up by Mark Twain in Oklahoma City, if you want to call it that, an HQ.
Okay. Well, I would say we could. I'd be very interested in keeping them in Norman as well, and I think we should probably explore any options for buildings that we have, or any partnerships with some potential downtown building owners that don't have tenants and haven't maybe in a while. So I think both those paths we might be able to find something worth doing.
I agree with that.
Hey, Matt, this might be intentional on y'all's part, but I'm seeing a picture of a really pretty lady on my screen. But not the folks in the
They
meeting,
can't
and if
see
that's
us.
what you want me to see, that's totally fine. But
Well, actually, that was probably unintentional. I think you're seeing Brenda Hall's picture at the top of the screen. So
Okay.
let's see if we can start our video and make. How about that?
there we go.
There you
Okay.
go. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I didn't know if there was a bunch of cigar smoking going on in there and you didn't want me to see it, so.
You know how these things get done, right?
How much space?
Yeah. How much space? Square footage? Like, what were you guys looking at potentially?
Well, I can't tell you the 2,700 square foot space we have in Oklahoma City is already too small. I mean, OKCPS would like to be able to bring all of their teachers there. We don't have the capacity for that. We run a 5-week summer camp, unique from what we do with OKC students in the summer, just for that Mark Twain community, and it's not large enough. So I sometimes make the mistake of not being able to anticipate the growth potential of this organization year to year. We've essentially doubled each year for the last 3 or 4 years, and we're on track to do that again, both in terms of staff and revenue. So I would think starting with something around 5,000, that would be great just for people. And then if there was any additional space for warehousing, we do have 2 very large storage units and more that we'd love to bring all of that equipment down, right next to where we're working. When we have for the distance learning, we ship out all of the learning tools across the state. We're working with, I think, 200 teachers each year, about 3,000 Oklahoma students for 15 hours each in small groups through that program. That's a lot of gear. That's a couple rooms worth of gear right there. It's rarely all in our hands at one time, so it's constantly being FedExed, in between different rural schools. But a place to keep all of that would be amazing too. And the reality is we're always coming up with other ways to serve teachers' needs. So ample space is probably something that I'm underestimating, because I just don't have a history with buildings and spaces. We started as a very, we'll deal with whatever we can get kind of program. And so this is a very new conversation for me.
What kind of, you mentioned 3D printers and things like that. What kind of equipment do you guys usually stock?
So just for this event, we brought down 2 large laser cutters. We have a bevy of 3D printers. I think as an organization, we now own about 40 3D printers. I wouldn't be surprised if we own more than most universities at this point. They're small, so we're not, talking about the $20,000 or $10,000 ones. But we love to put these in the hands of students. We have an entire wood shop up at the Mark Twain facility, and it's incredibly cramped. So it'd be nice to have some space where we could do things with middle school students and especially high school students who may not see college as the next step. We're pro-college, but we're more than that. We're just pro-engagement and doing cool stuff. And if college is not that route for a lot of folks, we love to empower them to do other things.
That's really good to hear. I think I only have one more question. That's kind of really, how do you guys handle the liability and the insurance and that kind of stuff? I assume you guys are fully covered, right?
Yeah. So Frady's is always, and they've merged a little bit. I'm trying to remember who they were before Frady's Insurance. But we've done all our insurance with them from the beginning. Just fully, because our board is smart, they want to be covered, and they want every kid covered and every activity covered. So we've always been fully insured.
Excellent. Well, are there any other questions from you guys? Councilman Holman.
If it was a building or property the city owns, would it be a rent situation or some type of long-term lease?
Yeah, that's kind of the structure I imagined, like we do with Sooner Theater and Firehouse and some other things. I think, Bart, I don't want to speak for you, but maybe something where there was I don't know how your fee structure works with your students, but if there was a way to carve off like $1 of every student fee that would go towards, I don't know, Norman Parks or go towards, paying the bills on the facility, something like that, I think we could entertain a, dollar lease situation kind of thing. But
And we'd be delighted to do that. And I think it's, if I have just a minute, Matt, most of our, we focus on Title I kids. We don't have any programs with Edmond. We've been invited to Heritage and Cassidy, and we've done a little bit with them, but we really focus our efforts on the schools that are Title I and students that are Title I. Because of that, we don't like to charge families a dime if we don't have to. So we've been very fortunate to have a lot of corporate sponsorship that supports those programs. For Norman, it's a little bit different in that there are Norman parents, and I would be among them, who would be delighted to, pay for high quality programming. So we have charged Norman parents in the past, but and we plan to this summer, but I do think it's important to say we have never turned a kid away because fee is an issue. We always try to make an opportunity for every student to attend, and we have no desire to stop that practice and that policy.
no, that's really good to hear. And maybe there's even an opportunity with the public school or the university to do a scholarship program or something like that to better round out those numbers and help facilitate that a little more. So, well, I think
will say this. The council approved it. I don't know if y'all recall, but as part of, I think, some ARPA funds, Engage went through the United Way process about a month ago. So we do have about, I think, $38,000 from the city of Norman for scholarships for this year, for the summer and after school. So I know you had a lot of those to go through, and I doubt you memorized all of them, but you've actually already invested in Engage this year.
well, that's a really good point to bring up. I do remember seeing Engage, but I didn't remember the number. So thanks for reminding us on that. Well, that's all the questions that I really have for right now, and I'm not really seeing anything else from everybody else. So I appreciate you taking the time from New Mexico to log on here and give us a rundown. And I think next steps for us will probably just take this to a full council study session or talk about it a little more in-house, and just whenever that time comes, I'll definitely keep you updated and let you know.
Hey, well, thank you, Matt, and I appreciate all of y'all for your time, and I'll get in the car for a long ride home.
Well, safe travel, sir.
All right, thank
bud.
you all.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Guess what?
Yeah. All right. So moving on to item number 2. This is a discussion regarding removable bollards in lieu of barricades for street closures. And primarily, I was thinking Norman Music Fest, Second Friday Art Walk when I first brought this idea to staff. So that's kind of the context on it. Basically, instead of hiring security and hiring people to install barricades and then monitor them, I figured this would be a much simpler, straightforward solution to kind of do instant street closure. So I believe staff has a small presentation that we're going to go over, and so I'm just going to open it up to you, sir, if you can connect.
Huh?
Did I close your presentation?
No, I didn't have a presentation. No internet.
Oh, that's odd.
We were just on the internet.
We'll see if it. No, it's not going to cooperate. Well, I don't have to have the presentation, the internet.
I think
What I was going to show you was two different types of these bollards. Whether there's the two main systems. One is you core a hole in the street, you put a sleeve in the hole.
And I actually think those are attachments for our agenda, so I think we all have the ability to open them up. So I can actually
But the
share.
nice thing about the website is they've got little
Oh, okay.
kind of videos that show how they're installed
Oh,
and
excellent.
how they're.
Apologies if you're watching at home. We're having some technical difficulties here, so just bear with us for a moment.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. Okay, full size. Let's look at, first of all, there are what they call removable bollards. There's a little video here that shows
Oh, yeah.
how they work. So that kind of, somebody would have to come along and put that bollard in the
Right.
sleeve. So that's not may not be exactly what you're looking for.
It's close.
It's close.
Yeah, removing the human element, I think, is the real cost saver. I also know that probably increases the cost of the bollards too. So
Right. Well, how do I get out of that now? Okay. There's another type that's called retractable bollards. And this is probably more what you're looking for.
yeah, I think this is. Yeah, do you twist and pull? Yeah, I've actually seen ones that are pneumatically operated where you can even just push a button and they
Right.
raise and lower, which
Right.
I'm sure that's
I
the
mean, you're
Cadillac.
just-
Right.
Talking, I focused on these two because I thought
Absolutely.
they were probably the most reasonable. That's it for that. So what I gave you in the handouts was really kind of a cut sheet for each of the two options. Of course, the removable bollard has a much shallower hole that would have to be dug in the street. Of course, you're gonna have all the issues with, we've all got utilities under the street, so finding places to put these things can and will be a challenge, most likely. If we go with the retractable, if you notice, there's 42.5 inches below ground versus 12 inches below ground, because the whole bollard's got to sit in there. In both cases, the height of the bollard above ground is roughly 36 inches. So you've got to have that extra depth to hold that whole
Excellent.
bollard going down. You know, they're all meant to be kind of vandal proof. The removable one, the lid acted as a lock,
Right.
a way to lock the bollard in place so nobody can come along and steal the bollard, because somebody will try to steal the bollard. The other one, it does have a key that you will have to be utilized, so that's something else to think about. But otherwise, I wanted to provide you with some information about what we do, our group does for various special events.
Okay.
We focused on the music festival. What we determined our costs were for the last music festival, a little over $1,200. But I also provided you with traffic control plans that we developed for these things. These bollards are really only going to be able to be put at the point of hard closure.
Right.
We still have to provide traffic control because, like on Main Street, for example, we just couldn't have the bollards come up and then not tell people where to go. We got to close lanes and things. So there's still going to be cones. There's still going to be other types of barricades. There's going to be signs telling people to merge left, merge right, or detour this way, detour that way. Plus the music festival, if you think about the way it is, it's not just Main Street. It's all the side streets that come in too. So is it practical to put this system on every one of those streets? Maybe so, maybe, but it's only going to be for part of it. It's never going to take the place of all of it. There's still going to be a human element in there somewhere.
That's a good point. Councilmember Schuler.
Well, I'm not just thinking about this on Main Street, but what about Campus Corner?
Sure.
Right, we closed
Yeah.
down, Asp and those streets as well. So, like, is there an opportunity for something like this
Yeah, that's probably a little easier because
during
you think about it.
game day situation
It's-
or?
Just pass by traffic. You're not people coming down Boyd that need to turn into Campus Corner. They're just gonna.
Right.
So it's a little less of the traffic control like it would be on Main Street. But absolutely, I think anywhere we want to entertain a street closure.
Yeah.
We would still have to have the accompanying devices to tell them where to turn and things like that.
Sure.
But
Sure.
the bollards could come up
Yeah.
in place of those type 3 barricades that we put out at the point of closure.
What is?
Come.
Sorry. What is the safety related to having just these as opposed to like a physical barrier if we've got pedestrians walking around and through that area?
I honestly didn't have enough time to research that angle from it. They showed like some collision tests that they had run. It showed a vehicle or a trailer running into it, and it didn't move the bollard. I think the removable one would be a little more problematic because it's not as deep, but depth is not always the easiest thing to achieve either. So, but that extra depth would give you more
Sure.
staying power for that bollard.
Okay. That's it.
Councilmember Holman.
Yeah, I would find these to be real helpful for allowing crowd movement. So I agree we'd still have to have barricades for directing traffic, but the issue I see on Campus Corner every game day is the barricades block the flow of people walking, and they also have created, in a few instances, created ADA access issues where the thing is blocking the street, but the sidewalk is not.
Yeah.
Accessible.
And we've used buses before, and that's created some problems as well. But I've received that complaint many times over the years about people with ADA issues not being able to easily
Sure.
get into Campus Corner because those blockades.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, and you see people
And the
kind of.
sidewalks are narrow on Campus Corner.
Mhm.
And so it's, I would see these as being able to help, especially the flow of people moving from Campus Corner to the stadium or back. Not having those, wall of barricade at Boyd Street
Well, just to
Would be
give you an idea,
and look a lot nicer too.
Boyd
Yeah.
being a 4-lane street, it would probably take, I just counted 13, I think, 13 of these bollards
Yeah,
because you couldn't just put one per lane because then they could go around it on the lane line if they wanted to, so you'd have to.
yeah. I wouldn't see them being on Boyd Street
Fine.
most likely.
Yeah,
More
so
so
asp,
asp,
yeah, white. Or,
White.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to give you a
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
idea of
no,
how
it's
many you're
helpful.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Main
Think
Street
we'd be
being
nice.
different since it is a throughfare.
Yeah.
But and the kind of the footprint of events downtown isn't the same either. Even the festival's footprint
Right.
has changed.
shifts, yeah.
I mean,
Well, and it's
even if you were
growing,
just
too.
focusing on Main Street,
Right,
it's it's gone to Webster before, and sometimes it's stopped at the tracks.
right.
So where to put them, where it would
Yeah.
work the best.
Yeah. Well, this,
Campus Corner would probably be easier
That would be
to
the
figure
best
that
one
out.
to start with.
Right.
As the pilot.
and that's kind of where I was going, I think, with this whole idea. It is a pilot, because in year one, we probably don't have the budget to do the entire thing. So even if we just put them at Porter and Webster on Main, basically the two ends, and then everywhere on Campus Corner or just Campus Corner. That way we don't have to fill in each of the side streets, and that gives Norman Music Fest a little bit of time, and Second Friday time to kind of adapt to the new layout or adjust their layout to fit where the bollards are going to be. Just gives us time to kind of collaborate and nail this thing down. But yeah, I think a pilot is a great way to do it.
I would say
We like pilots.
at Boyd on Asp,
Mhm.
and then on Asp, right past, just north of White, where the barricades currently go.
Yep.
And then at Buchanan and White. That's just based on the current
It's a really just a
set that
handful.
you guys have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those 3 spots, that would make it a lot.
I think it's a great
A
idea.
lot
Take
cleaner,
about
and
15.
especially for the game days. That's where the most events we have.
Well, and it looks less like a
It'll be
construction zone. I mean, just-
Aesthetically nicer.
Absolutely. We can paint
Yeah,
a
all
red
those
and
crowds
white
of people trying to
strips in.
cross, and then they're trying to worm around those barricades. Gets a
Right.
little, and I wish OU would stop using those giant concrete because they leave them on the side of Lindsay Street the whole football season. It kills all the grass. It looks terrible.
Yep.
And I'm like, at least move them out between game days. Don't just leave them. It's like.
What?
And they put them on the sidewalks in a way where people in wheelchairs can't get between them. I've seen it.
Sure.
And so it's like, I don't know, we don't have any control over them, but
Well, Lindsay Street's another great example. I didn't even consider that. I mean, there's a ton of pedestrians down there, especially on game days.
and OU does use the bollards on the.
Councilmember Grant.
I was gonna say collaboration sounds like the key word here, because you could talk to all these communities and really figure out some areas. But also, I was gonna say around OU, isn't it kind of tricky with right-of-way access?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. Lindsay's a public street, Bass is
Yeah.
a public.
I was thinking Campus Corner area, and
That's
Those are all public
campus.
streets
Okay.
too.
So then also, don't we have discussion around closing a section of street? Was it Elm or like making a pedestrian thoroughfare?
OU would like to close Lindsay Street from Jenkins to Elm
Yeah.
Street.
Really?
What?
Permanently.
I hadn't heard that. That's
Yeah, which
interesting.
I'll just say I like the idea of it. It just
The
our
practicality.
current street setup would make that very problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since
so-
there's no other east-west, you'd have to go a mile
maybe
down to
they
Imhoff and then go a
want-
mile over to Chautauqua and then a mile back
Yeah,
up.
that
Those
Yeah.
bollards.
Well,
It'd be a
would
3-mile
do
I mean,
detour.
the trick.
Boyd just gets a whole bunch more traffic.
And then
too.
you'd have to go take Jenkins to get to Boyd.
Oh,
That
gosh.
wouldn't work either.
That's not, yeah. Because, I mean, that's probably another road that would be closed off on game days if we're really talking about, doing this in every place that we currently have street closures. Yeah, you could.
Elm is open on game days, but Jenkins is closed, Lindsay's closed, and Boyd is closed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it is.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. Collaboration. I mean, this is not a decision that we can probably make unilaterally without some input from our community partners and just all the events that we've got going on. I want to make sure that it works for them and we're not creating something that's more of a hassle than it's a benefit. So, really, this was just kind of a discussion to see, what a dollar value looked like, what's the feasibility look like. I know, like I said, we know we don't probably don't have the budget to do all this in year one. So I'd love to see if pilot could or staff could put together a pilot on what this would look like.
So, when we went to some of the other communities, to experience game day stuff,
Right.
they have those, I don't know what they're called, but they're the barricades that they walk, they are on like a remote thing, and then they have just like
Crash
a,
gate, I think is what they're called.
is that what it's called? Yeah,
What we
like,
use here,
It's like a metal,
Metal.
lid that,
police department.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's more of a security issue.
yeah. So I'm wondering, like, is there any conversation happening around those things for game day? I mean, like, I think this is a good conversation because it's more than just that, but like, those are, things, it doesn't take the human element out of being able to, like, control them or bring them in. But I think sometimes they're a little bit easier because then they can lower them and,
For
EMS
emergencies,
or
absolutely, yeah.
things can get through those since you can drive right over them, as opposed to like having to move a whole concrete barrier.
Fair.
And so I'm wondering if even OU is looking into some of that for campus.
Well, I mean, as the 10,000-pound elephant in the room with the SEC coming and crowd control being even more important, I think they absolutely should be looking at all these options.
They use those on Jenkins
Yeah.
Right, yeah, right.
to allow
At Lindsay, I remember seeing
emergency
those.
vehicles to go through.
Yeah.
David
Well-
made a good point earlier. We think this bollard product really came out of this, we've all noticed in the last decade, lots of really ugly incidents where people are driving into crowds, and video issue event and so on.
Mhm.
So I think those are more safety devices more than they are really traffic control. Those bollards are too. That it was all designed to keep that from happening.
Safety,
Right.
yeah.
Let's not have somebody driving into our parades or
Sure.
our music festivals. And so I think the device that you're talking about that we own, or the police department owns, is driven out of that motivation, safe, public safety.
Right. And I know when it comes to Norm Music Fest, they have exactly to that point. They have a lot of redundancy. They'll have the water barrier, and then a concrete barrier behind it, and then even like a police car turned sideways back. So there's just this
Cascade.
belt and suspenders type system.
We never thought about those things until.
No, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate that we have to think about it now.
That's
Yeah.
really what's driving this industry.
And from a safety standpoint, these bollards would be much safer than a Type 3 barricade.
Okay,
Okay,
Without
that's
question.
good.
it's good to know.
Yeah.
Councilman Holman.
So yeah, I'd like to see a first or pilot, whatever, on Campus Corner,
Okay.
and I would say Aspen, Boyd, Buchanan and Boyd, Boyd and White, or not Boyd and White, Aspen,
Right,
White,
right.
White and Buchanan.
Four
Just four
intersections
right
there.
Yeah.
And I'm not even thinking, we really just need to do them on 2 of the streets. Because you don't have to do them on the inside streets if you've got them, basically, so eight total locations.
Thinking where they put the blockades at.
Right,
now, which is
exactly.
right. So block off Buchanan with the road closed sign.
I think that makes a lot of sense, because I think we have the runway to get that done potentially before football season. And I don't think we have the runway to get it done before Norm Music Fest. So I
Yeah.
think that makes a logical pilot, in my
And I
opinion.
think a little bit more challenging to do it on Main Street.
Absolutely.
Perhaps. Maybe not, but
Yeah,
Well, until we figure out the logistics of,
yeah.
where we would put
what are
them.
the footprints and where and how many and,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that's fair. Okay, so to staff, I think you have direction from us. If we need to have a conversation with the university, I'm happy to sit in on that and
Same
do what I
here,
can.
same here.
So
Okay.
you just let us know what we can do.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you turning this around quickly. I know I got it to you guys about a week ago, so it means a lot.
Well, I did reach out for costs. I didn't really get very far with those. I do know that the removable bollards are about $600 a piece.
Okay.
That doesn't include installation.
Sure,
That's
sure.
just the bollard itself. I would assume that the retractable one is going to be higher than that, but
Probably double or more.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, so.
But still, I mean, relative to other costs, I mean, that's not where when I'm talking a large expense here. So, okay, excellent. Well, again, appreciate your help. So, if no one else has anything, this meeting is adjourned.